Oh, it's a fish. Oh my gosh. Get out of that stuff. Oh, he's got me so pinned. I'm in all kinds of junk. Man, oh man, I stinking love the springtime. Let's go. This right here is why I love this time of year. Now, the purpose of this video is to share with you guys one tip that I think will dramatically increase your catch rate this spring and help you catch more fish just like this one. And what is that tip? Well, it's all about finding where the fish are, not where they've been or where they're going. Well, how the heck do you know, Tyler, where the fish are? In this video, I'm gonna tell you guys just that. My name's Tyler, and let's talk about it. Well, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back to Tyler's Reel Fishing. My goal here on this channel is to help you guys become better bass anglers, and so if you want to become a better angler, you belong here. Hit that subscribe button. Now, before we hop into my #1 tip for spring bass fishing, I got a question for you guys. Do you want to win an $80,000 bass boat? I feel like the answer to that question for everybody should be yes. And boy, oh boy, do I have good news for you. An awesome nonprofit foundation that I work with every single year called Bass for Beckers is a muscular dystrophy foundation that raises money for kids with MD and sends them to a camp for MD. It's an awesome foundation, and I'm happy to help them raise money. And their grand prize every single year is a brand new $80,000 fully outrigged Skeeter bass boat, just like the one I'm sitting on right now. And by purchasing a charity raffle ticket, you are not only being entered to win that brand new bass boat, you're entered to win an all expenses paid fishing trip with me. We're gonna fly you to Texas. We're gonna go out there and catch some awesome bass, and it's gonna be a great time. And so you might be thinking right now, Tyler, I'm not gonna buy raffle tickets. So many people are buying them. I'm never gonna win the boat or the fishing trip. And guess what? One of my viewers from last year just bought a ticket on a whim and thought, why the heck not? Helps raise money for an awesome charity, and I get the chance of winning a boat, and he won the stinking boat. One of my subscribers won the boat. Chris Dewey is his name, and he picked up the boat a few weeks ago, and so that could be you. Again, if you're watching this video, though, after April, you can still be entered to win the bass boat. The monthly prize just won't be a trip with me. So if you want to get in on that, a trip with me, all expenses paid, fly to Texas, hit that link in the video description to purchase your raffle tickets. Let's raise some money. So one thing that I talked about in a previous video is that you've got to stop fishing blind. And what I meant by that is that you've got to understand how the weather and the seasons affect bass movements, position, and behavior. And of course, you got to wear polarized sunglasses, but that's kind of the secondary point. And as a part of getting to know those seasons and how it affects bass, you also find where those bass are going to be in the depth zone, in your body of water, whether it's deep, shallow, whether it's rocks, wood, or sticks. Those seasons determine where those bass usually are going to be. And so in the springtime, where are they going to be at right now? Not where were they, and not where are they going to be. Where are bass in the spring? Well, the spring is focused around one major word, and that is spawn. Fish really focus on a few things in life. They focus on eating, not being eaten, and mating and reproducing, also known as spawning. And all three of those things happen in the spring, and so if you're not understanding of what springtime is, you're going to be fishing in the wrong areas and wasting a lot of time out there on the water when you could be a more productive angler. Now, if the spawn is all we've really got to worry about in the springtime, where does the spawn take place in your body of water? And regardless of if you're a pond angler, a kayak angler, or a bass boat angler, who cares the size of the lake, if it's a tiny pond or a giant reservoir, the spawn happens shallow. And so I'm gonna break down a few things having to do with the word shallow here in this next section. Now, in order for a bass to have a successful spawn, it must lay its eggs and must have enough sunlight penetrating through the water in order to incubate those eggs so that they hatch successfully. So knowing that a bass has to lay its eggs in shallow water, that basically eliminates fishing deep besides a few select circumstances such as really clear water. Something else that also eliminates fishing deep in the springtime is that fish have to feed up to prepare their bodies for the stressful spawn period when they're not really eating a whole lot, and most of that feeding happens in the pre-spawn up shallow. So that eliminates fishing deep. And lastly, once those baby bass hatch and become what's called fry, the male bass will usually stick around to guard those fry until they get a little bit older. And during that time period, the fry can't physically swim very deep, and so you're still gonna have bass shallow. So whether it's pre-spawn, spawn, or post-spawn, the entire springtime period is going to be a shallow fishing time. Of course, there can be anomalies, but I'm just saying, if you wanna be a productive angler to give yourself the best chance of catching fish, if it is springtime where you live, whether it's end of January in South Texas or end of May, June in New York, springtime is when you should be fishing shallow. So now that we've narrowed down our fishing to shallow, that still leaves a large area of our bodies of water, the entire bank line, and sometimes islands, humps, that kind of stuff. It still leaves that to fish, and that can get really complex. So where do you start? So when the water temperature is in the 50s, you're gonna find bass moving and feeding all over the place. So I'm talking all kinds of bottom compositions. Over rocks, over grass, over mud, over silt, over sand. Bass are moving all over the place, feeding up, getting ready for the spawn. And so during the pre-spawn, it can be a little harder to pinpoint fish, especially since they move so much. Now, of course, I have a video to help you guys on pre-spawn fishing tips. I will leave that linked in the video description if that still applies to you in this time period. But for a lot of us, water is no longer in the 50s, water's in the 60s, which means it is spawn time. And so because of that, bass will start to move their way and settle down in areas with harder bottom composition. When bass lay their eggs, they need some place the eggs are going to sit and not sink into the bottom. So that eliminates silt, mud, and really eliminates bigger chunk rock, because even though it's hard bottom, the eggs need to fall kind of in a small circular ball. That way the male can come and inseminate the egg. But knowing what to eliminate still leaves rock, sand, gravel, and all of its various forms. And so how do you find what the bottom composition is like in your body of water? There are two main ways that I go about doing that. The first is with my eyes if the water is clear, and the second is with a bottom contact type lure like a square bill crankbait, maybe even a little bit deeper diving crankbait than you should be throwing in that water depth, or with your rod tip itself. If you have clear water, like I mentioned, you'll be able to walk the bank or troll down the bank, depending on if you're a bank angler or a boat angler, and you'll be able to look in the water if it's spawn time and see bass making a physical bed, a physical nest, usually a white circle because they've used their tail and their bodies to sweep away all the extra sediment on top of that hard ground, therefore exposing usually the white rock. Sometimes the bed can actually be a darker area, a darker circle than the rest of the bottom, but usually it's a white circle. And so by looking in the water at a ton of different places on your body of water, you're gonna find out year after year where those best spring fishing places are with hard bottom, and you're gonna know to fish there next year. But if you don't have clear water where you're fishing, you can't use your eyes to physically see bass making beds. And so how do you find those? Well, it is the bottom composition lures and your rod tip. You're gonna wanna throw lures that feel the bottom. That way when you're in your retrieve, it's bouncing along the bottom. Maybe a jig, a tungsten jig can work really well, and you can feel the difference between muddy, silty, and rocky and hard bottom. Oftentimes, bass will bed even in a muddy area around a stump or a tree root, because that is a hard area around soft stuff. Really anything hard in your bodies of water is what you're gonna wanna find. And in dirty water, you kind of got to use the lures and sometimes your rod tip to find that. What do I mean by your rod tip? I mean, you literally take your rod and you stick it down in the water, lightly of course, not to break the rod tip, and you'll be able to feel down there if the bottom is a hard or a soft composition, and that'll kind of clue you in to some good areas to fish. And year after year, the bass are going to go back to the same general areas to spawn. And so if you don't really get on a good spawning bite, a good springtime bite, but you still find hard bottom, you'll know next year where to put most of your effort in fishing, and that's in the hard bottom area. So in conclusion, you have to understand as an angler the 4 seasons we have as humans and how those affect and transform about the 8+ seasons that bass have. I have seen a practical example of this several times this week alone while pond fishing around Dallas where I live. I've seen people park their trucks, walk down to the bank, and even though I just caught fish around the bank, like within literally 3 feet of the bank on beds, those people are fishing blind, as I talked about in my previous video, and they are casting way out into the middle, where fish are not really right now. I mean, you might catch a fish or two that's maybe staging out there pre-spawn or post-spawn, but the fish are mainly around the banks in the springtime. They are shallow like we talked about. And so I've seen people waste so much time when instead of casting directly out and working a slow retrieve back in, maybe cast more parallel to the bank. So your bait is in that shallower area for longer, thus giving you a better chance at catching fish. Following this tip and understanding why the bass are there in the springtime will help you increase your catch rate dramatically. And so with that said, I say we hop on the water and show you guys some fish catches doing exactly what I was talking about in this video, and that is fishing shallow. Let's get out there. Gosh, there's one on the jig. On the old jig. Get in here. These fish are so stinking healthy. Ooh, hard bottom, baby. Hard bottom, hard jig, hard fish. Got him. There we go. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Bring him on up in here. Yes, no, dang it. Gosh, dang it. Big old poopy doop. Well, that's what I get for trying to get a fish that's way the heck in there. Dragging him over 17,000 sticks. You're gonna lose a few, and that's okay. There's one. Yes. Right as I'd gotten past the grass into some more shallow wood, we got ourselves a chunky dunk. It's all about location, folks, finding that right location. And I think we just stumbled into an amazing location that we're about to take advantage of. I'm pumped. Are you pumped? Let's go. What a fish, gosh. There he is, yes. Nah, he wouldn't eat the frog, but he'd eat the ocho. That's what I'm talking about right there. Boom, top of the mouth every time. This is one of my favorite hooks out there. I'll leave it linked below if it's available on Tackle Warehouse. It's just a wide gap hook, but it catches them, man. That's all you can ask for right there. Beautiful. Oh, I'm having fun. Are you having fun? Probably not as much as me, but you can if you apply these tips. Gosh, I guess the swim bait can be a 1-2 punch with the Senko too. Beautiful, beautiful fish. Oh, let's stinking go. All these fish are stinking chunks. Gosh, dang it, man. Holy cow. These fish are different. My gosh, they're different. I'm eating beef jerky and this fish belongs to me. Oh gosh, what are these proportions I'm seeing? Oh my goodness, like genetically mutated. Wow. 2 thumbs up for me. Gosh, there's the male. 2 flips in a row. Oh my gosh. Man, or is that the female? I don't know, not the same fish though. 2 in a row, oh my gosh. When I was fighting the first fish, I saw one more with him, and that's that one. Gee, 3 in a row maybe? How about that? Not 3 in a row. No way. I just threw it over there to clear my spool. I wasn't even trying to catch one. Oh, it's a nice one too. Gee, wasn't even trying to catch one and I caught one. Gosh, these fish fight so hard, man. Holy cow. Every little stick up like this around some hard bottom has got him, man. I see you, big dog. I see you, beautiful, bodacious bass. Oh, I'm so pumped. This is fun. Gee. Roof of the mouth with the 4-aught wide gap hook. Pop it out just like that, and you got yourself another 3.5 pounder. You gotta fish in the spring, folks. You got to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're gonna take off more days, get a babysitter or whatever. Fish more in the spring than you ever have. They'll catch more.